Hi, I'm Rebecca. I'm 29. I live in a modest apartment on the east side of Atlanta. Third floor, tiny kitchen, one window that faces the alley behind a diner. And right now, I'm lying on a secondhand couch with a mug of tea that's gone lukewarm, listening to my phone vibrate for the fifth time in 7 minutes. I don't even have to check the screen. I know the names by heart. Mom, Dad, Evan, over and over, like they're taking turns or passing the phone between them. I picture my mother tapping redial with her finger curled tight in that way she does when she's angry but pretending not to be. I imagine my dad's voice, low and disappointed, already rehearsing whatever line he thinks will work this time. And Evan, well, he probably thinks one dramatic voicemail will make me fold. Again, I stare at the ceiling, paint peeling in the corners, the sound of someone dragging a garbage bin outside my window, the hum of a fan that never turns off. For a long time, this place felt too quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you flinch when the fridge kicks on. But today, it's starting to feel like silence I earned. I let the phone buzz again, pressed against the edge of the coffee table like it's trying to crawl closer. I don't reach for it. 6 months. That's how long it's been since I left. Not with a slam of the door, not with a speech. I didn't scream or throw blame or ask for closure. I just stopped. One night I packed 2 bags: laptop, toothbrush, 2 weeks worth of clothes, left the house while the TV was still on and Evan was yelling at a game controller. No one noticed, or maybe they did and decided not to say anything. That's the part I still can't decide. If they were too wrapped up in themselves to care, or if they thought I'd come back like I always did. But I didn't. That part matters. I didn't go back. The phone buzzes again. This time it's a call. I glance at the screen. Mom. I let it ring until it stops. Then it buzzes again. Dad. I watch the name disappear, then Evan, back to Mum. They're passing the baton, trying to wear me down, trying to remind me of something: obligation, guilt, family. I sip my tea. It's cold now, bitter. There was a time I would have picked up, even if my voice was shaking, even if my chest felt tight. I would have answered, listened to the problem of the day, and wired whatever money needed sending. I used to think that was love. I used to think responsibility looked like giving everything you had until you had nothing left, until your own dreams were back ordered behind other people's emergencies. But now I know something else, something I learned in this apartment. Alone with nothing but old books and silence, you can't build a peaceful life on the bones of your own exhaustion. You can't be everyone's solution and still have space to be a person. I press the rim of the mug to my lips again, still cold. The phone is quiet for a moment, that kind of pause that almost feels peaceful. Then it vibrates again, a text, maybe, or another missed call. I don't check. Instead, I close my eyes, let the sounds of the street below filter in: a dog barking, a car alarm in the distance, the soft hum of a bus pulling away from the curb. It's funny. For most of my life, I thought freedom would feel big, loud, joyful, but it doesn't. At least not for me. For me, freedom feels like this: a quiet room, a phone I don't have to answer, a breath that doesn't feel borrowed. And for the first time in years, that feels like enough. I started working when I was 16, not because I wanted pocket money or because my friends were doing it. I worked because I had to. My first job was at a small bakery off Ponce. After school, I'd bike there in my wrinkled uniform, tie on an apron that smelled like sugar and bleach, and wipe down tables until my legs went numb. I'd come home after dark, smelling like cinnamon and tired, while Evan lounged on the couch with chips in one hand and the TV remote in the other. He was already in college by then, art school. 2 semesters in, he dropped out because, in his words, it killed his creativity. Mum said it was brave. Dad said not everyone was meant for school. I remember overhearing them one night as I walked past the kitchen. Mum said, "Evan's just trying to find himself." Dad replied, "Let him breathe a little." When I came home with my acceptance letter to Georgia State, full scholarship, mind you, the only thing Mum said was, "That's great, honey, but it's kind of far, isn't it? We might need the car some days." As if I hadn't just secured 4 years of education they wouldn't have to pay for, as if my achievement was a scheduling inconvenience. I never asked for the car. I took the train, walked when I had to, saved up for an old bike during freshman year, one with a wobbly chain and a frame that squeaked every block. I used that thing to get from class to my part-time job at a bookstore downtown. Evan had a new car by then. Mum co-signed the loan. It had Bluetooth heated seats, and he drove it to a Sketchpad workshop he quit after 3 weeks. When his laptop broke, they bought him a new MacBook on credit. When mine crashed during finals week, I borrowed one from the library. Evan always had someone catching him when he fell. I learned early that if I tripped, I better figure out how to land without breaking too much. Still, I kept telling myself this was just how things were, that some kids needed more attention and some were just better at being okay. I was okay. I told myself that a lot. During senior year, I worked late nights tutoring high school students. I'd come home and open the fridge to leftovers Evan didn't bother wrapping. Sometimes he'd be asleep on the couch, game controller still in hand. Fast food wrappers scattered around him like confetti. Mum would sigh, drape a blanket over him and whisper, "He's going through a tough time." She never said that when I had dark circles under my eyes, from studying until 2 a.m. She never said it when I lost 10 pounds in a semester because I couldn't afford groceries. Dad called me the dependable one, the steady ship, but it never felt like a compliment. It felt like a role they assigned to me so they wouldn't have to worry about me. I became the daughter they didn't need to check on, the one who didn't get asked how her day was or what she dreamed about, because I was always fine, right? I was always okay. But I wasn't, not really. There was a time I tried to explain it to them. I was 22. I had just gotten hired at a consulting firm and was making real money for the first time. I came home with takeout and sat down at the kitchen table. I said, "I want to save up for a place of my own." Mom blinked, frowned a little, and asked, "Don't you think people will wonder why you're buying a place alone? Like, maybe you couldn't find anyone?" I remember my fork paused halfway to my mouth. I put it down, suddenly not hungry. No congratulations, no wow, that's amazing. Just a question about whether independence looked suspicious to the neighbors. Evan, meanwhile, was on his 3rd attempt at an online course in animation. They needed help paying for it. I covered the fee, told myself it was just a one-time thing, but it never was. Electric bill short this month? I'd handle it. Car insurance due? I'd spot it. Evan's birthday coming up? Mom would say, "You know how much he looks up to you. Maybe something nice this year." So I'd buy the noise-canceling headphones he wanted, even though I still wore wired ones with tape on the left side. The money wasn't what broke me. Not at first. It was the way none of it ever seemed to matter. The way giving became expected. The way silence filled the space where thank yous should have been. The way I started to disappear, even as I gave more and more of myself. I think the worst part wasn't the unfairness. It was realizing that I had become invisible, that the more I showed up, the more I blended into the background of their lives. I was the solution, the safety net, the fallback plan. Not the daughter, not the person. It's strange how long you can live like that, justifying, enduring, rationalizing, until one day you look around and realize the only person holding the house together is the one sleeping on a couch in a 1-bedroom apartment across town. And that's when things started to change. Slowly, quietly, the way fog starts to lift before the sun comes up. You barely notice it at first, but once it's gone you realize how heavy it was, how hard it was to breathe. It didn't happen in a burst. There was no yelling, no fight, no dramatic scene where I finally lost my temper and said everything I had kept inside. That would have been easier in a way, cleaner. But the truth is, I just got tired. Not in a way you can sleep off. It was deeper than that. A kind of tired that lives in your bones, makes you forget what peace ever felt like. The night I decided to leave, I was standing in the kitchen holding a plastic grocery bag. Inside were salmon fillers, broccoli, frozen rice. I had worked a weekend shift, skipped lunch, and drove across the city just to make sure they had dinner. And still, before I could put the bags down, Mum's voice cut through the room. "Rebecca, we need to talk." Those 5 words, always the start of a conversation that meant I needed to give more. She didn't even wait for me to take off my jacket. "What you're sending every month, it's not enough anymore." I didn't speak, just stared at the bag in my hands. It was starting to tear at the bottom, too heavy. Dad stepped into the room, his voice already worn down from the weight of his own excuses. "You live alone, you make good money. Meanwhile, we're drowning here." I wanted to laugh, not because it was funny, but because it was so familiar. The same script, just with a new coat of guilt. Then Evan, curled up on the couch with his phone, mumbled, "It's not like you're struggling. What's wrong with helping your own family?" That was the moment, not some explosion of rage, just a quiet, sharp click inside me, like something finally locking into place. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I didn't explain how I had been eating noodles for a week to pay for their utility bills. I just nodded slowly and said, "All right." I dropped the grocery bag on the table and walked out. That night, I packed what I could fit into 2 duffel bags: clothes, my laptop, toothbrush, a notebook with old budgeting sheets and numbers scribbled into the margins. I left behind the framed photos on the wall, the books I never had time to read, and the version of myself who thought endurance was love. No one stopped me, no one followed me out to the car. It was like I had already disappeared, long before I decided to physically leave. The apartment I moved into wasn't much. 3rd floor, no elevator. The stairs creaked and smelled faintly of dust and varnish. The front door stuck a little at the bottom and scraped against the floor when I opened it. The paint on the walls was chipped, off-white, turning to beige in spots, and the windows rattled when it rained. But it was mine. There was only enough room for a couch, a small table, a mattress on the floor, and the quiet. The quiet was the loudest part. At first it felt strange. I would pause sometimes, waiting for a voice to call me from another room, waiting for the buzz of another demand. But there was nothing, just the sound of my own breathing and the occasional thump of someone walking overhead. The first night I slept there, I kept the window open. The air smelled like old pavement and something sweet from the bakery across the street. I laid on my back, staring at the ceiling, the fan turning slow above me. For the first time in years, no one needed anything. No one asked for money. No one told me I was selfish. It was just me, a blanket, and a silence I didn't have to apologize for. I didn't cry. That surprised me. I thought I would. I thought the weight of what I had done, or not done, would crash over me like a wave. But it didn't. I felt empty. Yes, but not broken, just clean. Like I had stepped out of a room that had been too hot for too long and finally felt the cool air on my skin. The next morning, I made coffee, just for me. I sat on the floor beside the window and let the light spill across the wood. The floorboards creaked when I moved, the paint peeled at the corners. My coffee was a little too bitter, but I could breathe. And for once, I didn't owe that breath to anyone. It started small. A text from Mum one afternoon while I was walking back from Piedmont Park. Just 5 words. "We need to talk soon." I stared at it for a while, then slipped my phone back into my pocket without replying. I had gone months without a message. Months of silence. It had been like stepping into a new world where my name didn't always mean obligation. But silence doesn't last forever, not when guilt is your family's favorite tool. The next day, a voicemail from Dad. Rebecca, things are getting serious with the house. I know you're busy, but we can't wait much longer. His voice was calm, but tight, like he was holding something back. I didn't call him back. I told myself it was just another round of panic. They had always been good at making everything sound urgent. Then came Evan. You think this is over just because you ran off? We're still your family. You can't ignore us forever. No context, no hello, just blame, wrapped up in entitlement, like I had left them out of cruelty instead of survival. I blocked Evan's number. I thought maybe that would slow the current, but it didn't. The messages started stacking up. First polite, then pleading, then angry. Mum tried guilt. If you still care about us at all, please call. Dad tried shame. We did everything we could. Now we need your help, and you're just gone. And finally, Evan again, from a different number. You're letting us drown, and you'll regret it. I didn't reply to any of it, but something in my chest had started to tighten. Not guilt, not exactly. It was something else, like a small stone lodged under my ribs. I couldn't ignore it anymore. So that night, I made tea, sat at my kitchen table, and opened my laptop. I logged into the joint bank account I used to send the mortgage money, the same account that was supposed to keep the house afloat. I hadn't looked at it in over 6 months. I had wanted to believe it wasn't my business anymore, but there it was. The last payment on the mortgage had been 8 months ago, 2 months before I stopped sending money. I blinked at the screen, clicked the line again, same date, same amount, a perfect match to the transfer I had made that week. But the next month, nothing, and the month after that, and the month after. But I had still been sending money then, almost $3,000 after that final recorded mortgage payment. Gone. The account balance hovered just above zero. No mortgage withdrawals, just random debits. A few ATM withdrawals, a payment to a computer store, a restaurant charge, groceries, but nothing for the house, nothing for what they said they needed. I sat back in my chair, stared at the screen until it blurred. They lied to me. Not just once, not in passing. They lied every time they said just one more month, or it's all going to the house, or we'd lose everything without you. And the money, they spent it, without telling me, without asking, without shame. Something broke then, something that had already been bending for years, not loudly, not violently, just finally. It wasn't the money. I could earn more. It was the trust. The belief that, despite everything, they had at least been honest with me about what they needed. That even if they leaned on me too hard, it was still real. But it wasn't. They let me eat noodles in my apartment while they covered restaurant tabs. They let me delay my own savings goals while they paid for Evan's new monitor. They let me think I was saving something that had already started sinking. I didn't cry, I didn't scream. I just sat there, watching the cursor blink on the screen. A little reminder that time was still moving, even if something inside me had stopped. Later that night, I got another message. Dad again. Rebecca, please, the bank is pressing us. We're behind and we need to catch up. Just a few months of help. That's all. The bank was pressing them. They hadn't paid in 8 months. I opened my own banking app and scrolled through the transfers. There they were, line after line, labeled house, family, urgent. Every dollar, every month, 3 months after they stopped paying. Gone. I don't know how long I sat there. Long enough for the tea to go cold, long enough for the light outside the window to turn orange then grey. I wasn't angry, not exactly. I was something deeper than that, something harder. A kind of grief. Not for them, for me, for the version of myself that kept trying to believe they would do right by me if I just gave a little more. That version was gone now, and in her place was someone who finally understood. It had never been about survival, it had been about access, and I was the access point, the open wallet, the fallback plan. And the moment I closed the door, they didn't lose a daughter. They lost an asset. And they weren't grieving me. They were panicking because I had finally stopped playing along. I waited until the next morning, not because I needed more time to think, but because I needed to be steady. No shaking hands, no teary voice, just the truth, spoken out loud, for once. I sat on the edge of my bed, phone in hand, staring at the contact labeled home. It felt like a lie. That word, home. I pressed the call button anyway. It rang twice before Dad picked up. "Rebecca," he said like he had been expecting me. His voice was thick with something. Relief, maybe, or guilt. I couldn't tell. I didn't care. "I checked the mortgage account," I said. No hello, no soft let-in, just that. Silence on the line. I saw the last payment was 8 months ago, but I kept sending money for 3 of those months. What happened to it? Another pause, then, "It's not what you think." I let out a short breath, not quite a laugh, not quite a sigh. "Then tell me what it is," I said. He fumbled. "We had other priorities. Evan needed a few things for his work. The roof started leaking. We didn't think—" "You didn't think to tell me," I cut in. "You didn't think to ask. You didn't think to be honest." Mom's voice came in from the background. I could hear her now, closer to the phone. "Rebecca, don't do this. We didn't lie. We just had to shift things around." Shift things around. That was her version of the truth. "You told me it was for the mortgage," I said, my voice low, steady. "You begged, said you were going to lose the house, and I believed you. I changed my life for you. You think we didn't have pressure?" Mom snapped. "We've been drowning, Rebecca. Since you left, everything's fallen apart." "No," I said. "It started falling apart before I left. You just didn't notice because I was the one holding it up." That shut her up for a moment. Dad tried again. "We're not blaming you, but you have to understand. You left so suddenly, and then the money stopped. We were left scrambling." I closed my eyes, my grip tightening. I sent money for months after I left. I ate canned soup for a week so you could stay afloat. You let me think I was helping when the mortgage hadn't been paid since before I even walked out that door. "It wasn't that simple," Dad said quietly. "Maybe not," I replied, "but it was dishonest and you knew it." Then Evan's voice broke in. Of course he was there. Of course he had something to say. "You're acting like some kind of victim," he said, too loud, too fast, "like we took advantage of you. But you offered. You sent the money. Nobody made you." I laughed once, dry, hollow. "You're right," I said. "No one held a gun to my head. You just built a system where saying no made me the villain, where helping was expected and not helping was betrayal." He scoffed. "You think you're above us now, just because you got your own place and a decent paycheck?" "No," I said. "I think I finally stopped confusing being used with being loved." The silence on the other end was sharp, like a room full of people who had just been told something they didn't want to hear but couldn't unhear either. Mom's voice cracked through it. "I can't believe you're saying this. After everything we've done for you." "What have you done for me?" I asked. "Tell me one thing in the last 10 years that wasn't about Evan's second chances or your overdue bills." "That's not fair," she said. "We gave you everything we could." "And I gave back more," I said. "Every raise, every bonus, every moment I thought maybe this time you'd see me. But you didn't. You saw a safety net. You saw an account balance." "Don't be cruel," Dad whispered. "I'm not," I said. "Cruel would be pretending this can go back to what it was." Mom started to cry then, that familiar sob, the kind that used to gut me, make me apologize for things I hadn't done. But this time it didn't move me. It sounded like a recording I had heard too many times. "You're going to let your family fall apart," she said between tears. "I didn't let anything happen," I said. "You made your choices. I'm just done paying for them." More silence, the kind that feels like the other side of a closed door. Then Dad said quietly, "So that's it? You're cutting us off?" I looked out my window. The morning light was coming in, soft and gold. The street below was just waking up. "I'm choosing myself," I said, "for once." Nobody said anything else. I waited 5 seconds, then 10. Then I hung up. My hands shook afterward, not from fear, from release, like something had been lodged in my chest for years and finally came loose. I set the phone down and walked into the kitchen, made coffee, the ordinary kind of ritual that doesn't cost your soul. And for the first time, I didn't feel like the bad daughter. I felt like someone who had finally stopped bleeding just to keep other people warm. The silence came quickly after that last call. A kind of hush that wasn't empty but thick, weighted, like the moment after a storm when everything is still too stunned to move. I turned off my phone for 3 days, let it sit on the nightstand like a rock I didn't want to lift. No texts, no calls, no missed voicemails piling up like they used to. Just quiet. The kind that stretched long and wide and unfamiliar. At first, it felt like freedom. I woke up without a list in my head. No bills that weren't mine, no phone vibrating before the sun rose, just the soft hum of the ceiling fan and the way the light came in slow through the blinds. I made coffee every morning and drank it by the window, watching the street wake up below. Delivery trucks, dogs on leashes, neighbours heading to the train station. I'd pull on my shoes and walk to the corner shop, pick up fruit, sometimes flowers. I let myself wander down to Piedmont Park when I had time, walking slowly, letting the noise of the city move past me without needing anything from me. For a while that was enough. But silence is strange. It doesn't stay gentle. Some nights it bends. It was on one of those nights that I finally checked my voicemail again. I told myself I just wanted to clear the inbox, but I listened to each one, start to finish. Mom crying, Dad saying the house was weeks from foreclosure, Evan accusing me of abandoning them like I was walking away from a burning building I had set on fire. And then nothing. That was the part that hurt the most. The nothing that came after. No apology, no explanation, no moment of clarity on their end. Just the same pattern. Blame, silence, expectation. Still, part of me kept asking questions in the quiet. What if they really lose the house? What if one day I get a call saying they're living in a shelter or with a distant cousin? What if I really was too harsh? That voice never fully goes away. The one that was trained to think boundaries are betrayal. That love is proven by how much pain you're willing to carry. But I know now, love doesn't look like exhaustion. It doesn't sound like just one more favor. It doesn't feel like silence unless you give something up. I used to think being strong meant always saying yes, always stepping in. But strength, I've learned, also looks like walking away when no one else is willing to change. Some mornings I still wake up expecting the buzz of a message asking for help. My hand twitches toward the phone, but there's nothing there, just the slow rhythm of my own breathing. I cook more now, nothing fancy. Roasted vegetables, soup, toast with honey and soft cheese. I sit down to eat and finish every bite. No one interrupts me, no one needs anything mid-meal. I read on weekends, I water my plants. I take walks without my phone. I make small plans. Saving for a new bike, maybe a weekend trip to Asheville. I'm learning how to dream again, just for me. And even though there are nights when the doubt creeps in, when I wonder if I failed them, if I failed myself, I don't reach for the phone. Because I know something I didn't before. Choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's survival. It's standing in the middle of your own life and finally realizing that you deserve to live in it. Fully, without apology, without guilt. I'm not waiting for them to understand. I'm not waiting for them to change. I'm just here, in this quiet apartment, drinking my coffee, breathing deeply, living softly. And for now, that's enough.